Brazil in the 1970s was a tough place. The country was under a military dictatorship and the government ruled with an iron fist. The streets were often patrolled by soldiers and any form of dissent was quickly and harshly dealt with. The atmosphere was tense and fear was a constant companion for many Brazilians. The military was in charge and they didn't allow anyone to speak out against them. People who dared to oppose the regime were often arrested and thrown into overcrowded prisons. These prisons were not just filled with political prisoners, but also with common criminals, creating a volatile mix of inmates. Prisons were packed with people who disagreed with the government and regular criminals. The conditions were harsh, and the inmates had to find ways to survive in such a brutal environment. It was in these dire circumstances that an unexpected alliance began to form. On Ilha Grande, a prison island, something surprising happened. This remote and isolated location became the breeding ground for a new kind of brotherhood. Political prisoners who were often educated and ideologically driven started to interact with the common criminals who were street smart and experienced in the ways of the underworld. Political prisoners and criminals became friends. They shared their knowledge and skills, learning from each other. The political prisoners taught the criminals about organization and ideology, while the criminals shared their survival tactics and street knowledge. This exchange of ideas and skills led to the formation of a new group. They formed a group called Comando Vermelho, which means Red Command. This group was not just a gang, it was a well-organized entity with a clear structure and purpose. The name Red Command symbolized their revolutionary spirit and their desire to challenge the oppressive system that had brought them together. This name would soon be known all over the poor neighborhoods of Rio de Janeiro. The favelas, with their dense populations and lack of government presence, became the perfect breeding ground for the group's activities. The residents of these areas, who were often neglected and marginalized, found a new sense of hope and protection in the Comando Vermelho. Comando Vermelho wasn't just a regular gang, it was a response to the harsh realities of life in the favelas. The group provided a sense of order and security in a place where the government had failed to do so. They enforced their own rules and offered protection to those who joined them. It was created because of the harsh times and the struggles of the poor. The economic disparity and social injustice in Brazil had left many people with no other option but to turn to groups like Comando Vermelho for support. The gang became a symbol of resistance and survival in the face of adversity. It gave people protection and a sense of belonging when they had nothing else. The sense of community and solidarity that the gang provided was a powerful draw for many young men in the favelas. They found a purpose and a place where they were valued and respected. The leaders of the gang, who had been through a lot, made strict rules and wanted power. They were determined to maintain control and expand their influence. Their experiences in prison had taught them the importance of discipline and organization, and they applied these lessons to their operations in the favelas. They thought of themselves as fighters against the government. Their actions were driven by a desire to challenge the status quo and to create a new order in the favelas. They saw themselves as protectors of the poor and oppressed, standing up against the injustices of the system. In the 1980s, Comando Vermelho changed. The political landscape in Brazil was shifting and the gang had to adapt to the new realities. The ideals that had once driven them began to take a back seat to more pragmatic concerns. They weren't so idealistic anymore. The need for survival and the lure of wealth started to influence their actions. The gang began to focus more on economic gain rather than their original revolutionary goals. They started focusing on making money from selling drugs. The drug trade offered a lucrative opportunity, and Comando Vermelho quickly became involved in the cocaine business. This shift marked a significant change in the gang's operations and objectives. Cocaine coming from the Andes Mountains was a quick way to get rich and powerful. The drug trade connected them to international networks and brought in substantial profits. This new source of income allowed the gang to expand its influence and operations. Comando Vermelho took this chance, setting up drug routes and getting rid of anyone who got in their way. The gang became more violent and ruthless, using any means necessary to protect their interests and eliminate competition. The gang grew bigger, taking over Rio's favelas and getting young people involved in violence and crime. The influence of Comando Vermelho spread throughout the city, and their presence became a defining feature of life in the favelas. The gang's legacy, born out of oppression and struggle, continues to shape the social and political landscape of Rio de Janeiro. Comando Vermelho makes most of its money from selling drugs. This notorious gang has established a vast and intricate network that spans across multiple countries, ensuring a steady flow of illegal substances. Their operations are highly organized, with different factions handling various aspects of the drug trade, from production to distribution. The gang's influence extends deep into the heart of the drug trade, making them a formidable force in the underworld. They control huge networks, moving cocaine from the Andes to Rio and other places. These routes are meticulously planned to avoid detection, often involving multiple layers of transportation methods. From hidden compartments in cargo ships to clandestine flights, the gang employs a variety of tactics to ensure their shipments reach their destinations. The sheer scale of their operations is staggering, with tons of cocaine being moved across borders regularly. They're good at smuggling, using planes and even people to carry drugs. Mules or individuals who transport drugs on their person are often coerced or enticed with promises of money. The gang's ingenuity in smuggling methods is a testament to their adaptability and resourcefulness. They constantly evolve their techniques to stay one step ahead of law enforcement, making it incredibly challenging to intercept their operations. They have connections with drug gangs in other countries too. These alliances are crucial for maintaining their supply chains and expanding their reach. By collaborating with other criminal organizations, Comando Vermelho can access new markets and resources. These international partnerships also provide mutual benefits, such as shared intelligence and support in times of conflict with rival gangs or law enforcement. They make a ton of money, but it causes a lot of violence and problems in communities. The influx of drugs and the gang's presence often lead to turf wars, resulting in frequent shootouts and casualties. Innocent residents are caught in the crossfire, living in constant fear. The social fabric of these communities is torn apart, with families being displaced and local businesses suffering due to the instability. Selling drugs isn't the only thing Comando Vermelho does. Their criminal portfolio is diverse, encompassing a range of illicit activities. This diversification not only increases their revenue streams, but also makes it harder for authorities to dismantle their operations. Each criminal endeavor is carefully managed, with specific members or subgroups specializing in different types of crime. They're also involved in other crimes like threatening people for money, kidnapping, stealing, and selling weapons. Extortion is a common tactic, with local businesses and residents being forced to pay for protection. Kidnappings are often used to intimidate rivals or extract ransom money. The sale of illegal firearms further fuels the cycle of violence, providing the gang and other criminals with the means to enforce their will. They do whatever they want in the favelas they control, scaring people and making their own rules. The gang's dominance in these areas is almost absolute, with local authorities often powerless to intervene. They impose their own laws, meting out punishment to those who defy them. This creates an environment of fear and oppression where residents must navigate a precarious existence under the gang's watchful eye. The police often can't stop them because the gang has more weapons and knows the area better. The favela's complex and densely packed layout provides the gang with numerous hiding spots and escape routes. Their superior firepower and intimate knowledge of the terrain give them a significant advantage in confrontations with law enforcement. This imbalance of power makes it extremely difficult for the police to assert control and restore order. Comando Vermelho stays in power by using violence and controlling people's lives. Intimidation and brutality are their primary tools for maintaining dominance. They monitor the activities of residents, ensuring compliance through fear. Any perceived disobedience is met with swift and often lethal retribution. This oppressive regime stifles any attempts at resistance or rebellion, keeping the population subdued. They act like the government in the favelas, providing some services and deciding what's right and wrong. In the absence of effective state governance, the gang steps in to fill the void. They offer basic services such as food distribution, healthcare, and even conflict resolution. This dual role as both oppressor and provider creates a complex relationship with the community where the gang is both feared and relied upon. This makes things complicated for the people living there. The residents are caught in a web of dependency and fear, unable to fully trust the gang, but also unable to survive without their support. This dynamic creates a tense and volatile atmosphere where any misstep can have dire consequences. The constant presence of the gang looms over every aspect of daily life, making it difficult for the community to thrive. They're afraid of the gang, but also depend on them for some things. This dependency is a calculated strategy by the gang to ensure loyalty and control. By providing essential services, they create a sense of obligation and gratitude among the residents. However, this relationship is fraught with tension as the gang's violent methods and unpredictable behavior keep the community in a state of perpetual anxiety. The gang's influence is everywhere, from local stores to community groups. Their presence is inescapable, with their symbols and members visible throughout the neighborhood. They infiltrate every aspect of community life, from economic activities to social events. This pervasive influence ensures that their authority is constantly reinforced, leaving little room for any alternative power structures to emerge. It's hard to know who's in charge of Comando Vermelho, this notorious criminal organization, which originated in the prisons of Rio de Janeiro in the late 1970s, has grown into one of the most powerful and feared gangs in Brazil. Over the years, it has evolved into a complex network with a hierarchical structure that is both fluid and secretive. They're very secretive, with many levels of leaders and things always changing. The leadership is not static. It shifts frequently due to arrests, internal conflicts, and strategic decisions. This constant state of flux makes it difficult for law enforcement to pin down the key figures at any given time. But some names are well known and people are afraid of them. These individuals have made a name for themselves through their ruthless tactics and ability to maintain control over their territories. Their reputations precede them, instilling fear not only in the local communities but also among rival gangs and even within their own ranks. These are the men who control the drugs, order killings, and make deals with politicians and businessmen. Their influence extends beyond the favelas and into the corridors of power, where they leverage their resources to gain protection and further their criminal enterprises. The intertwining of crime and politics creates a web of corruption that is difficult to unravel. One of these men was Fernandinho Beiramar, a very dangerous drug lord who became powerful in the 1990s. His real name is Luis Fernando da Costa, but he is better known by his nickname, which translates to Seaside Freddy. Beiramar was notorious for his violent methods and his ability to forge alliances with other criminal organizations. He was good at business, but also very violent. His business acumen allowed him to expand Comando Vermelho's operations, making it a dominant force in the drug trade. However, his reign was marked by extreme violence, including numerous murders and brutal enforcement of his rules. He worked with drug gangs from Colombia, making Comando Vermelho bigger and more important in the world of drug trafficking. These international connections helped the gang secure a steady supply of cocaine, which they distributed throughout Brazil and beyond. This collaboration with Colombian cartels was a game changer, elevating Comando Vermelho's status in the global drug trade. When he was caught in 2001, it was a big win for the government, but the gang didn't lose its power. Despite his arrest, the organization continued to operate, demonstrating its resilience and the depth of its leadership. Beiramar's capture was a significant blow, but it did not dismantle the intricate network he had helped build. Another important person is Rogério da Silva Mendonça, also called Rogério 157. He emerged as a key figure in the gang, known for his strategic mind and ruthless enforcement of the gang's rules. His leadership style was different from Beiramar's, but equally effective in maintaining control. He led a part of Comando Vermelho that controlled Rochinha, one of the biggest favelas in Rio. Rochinha is a sprawling community with a complex social fabric, and controlling it meant having significant influence over a large population. Rogério 157's ability to maintain order in such a chaotic environment was a testament to his leadership skills. He was known for being cruel and showing off his money online. His ostentatious displays of wealth were a stark contrast to the poverty surrounding him, and they served as a reminder of the power and influence he wielded. These displays also helped to recruit new members who were enticed by the promise of wealth and power. He was arrested in 2017, which hurt the gang, but he still had power from jail. Even behind bars, Rogerio 157 continued to exert influence over Comando Vermelho, directing operations and maintaining his status within the organization. His arrest was a significant event, but it did not completely sever his ties to the gang, illustrating the deep-rooted nature of Comando Vermelho's leadership structure. In February 2024, something shocking happened. Two important members of Comando Vermelho, Rogerio da Silva Mendonça and Dibson Cabral Nascimento, broke out of a high-security prison in Mossoró. This showed how powerful the gang is and how weak the prisons are. People all over the country were worried. The escape was carefully planned. Mendonça and Nascimento had help from people inside and outside the prison. They got past many security checks, using tunnels and climbing over walls. It was a very bold escape, and it showed how corrupt some of the prison officials are. The police searched everywhere for Mendonça and Nascimento. The government wanted to catch them to look strong. Hundreds of officers looked for them all over, from the Amazon rainforest to the streets of Rio. Everyone in Brazil was talking about the escape and the search. It showed how hard it is to fight against organized crime.